Hello, I'm Debbie Elmore, and I have my master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and currently I'm working on my PhD in counseling, education, and supervision. Today we're going to talk about adult vocational development in the way of Donald Super's lifespan lifespace theory. We are going to cover the 5 lifespan stages first. After that, we will cover the life stage or life space part of Super's theory, including the 9 life roles within the 4 context areas. We'll do this using formal and informal illustrations. The ideas presented will be culturally sensitive in terms of diversity, dignity, and integrity with regard to the challenges of adult learning and cognitions for these groups. Second, the presentation will analyze research results associated with mentoring counselor education and will explain the relevance of the results. And third, resources and strategies relevant to adult and vocational development for counselors will be presented in an accessible and meaningful way. Keep in mind, please, that theories of vocational development assume that we have the ability to choose a career that we want to pursue. Factors that shape the idea of career in the realm of vocational development include our personal developmental desires, the place where we work, and our professional identity. Donald Super's lifespan theory includes 5 stages. The first stage is the growth stage. This stage begins at birth and ends at about age 15. As a child becomes more autonomous, she develops personal attitudes, abilities, and interests. These attitudes, abilities, and interests are derived from identifying with the adults in her life, the child's experiences, and the general environmental climate. Think of it this way. A child is born into a family. One parent works outside the home and the other parent works from home. Both parents enjoy their work because they feel called to their professions. Further, both parents carry their fair share of the workload at home. As the child grows and matures into the teen years, she begins to entertain the idea of being a counselor. She feels called to this, being a counselor. This foundational story lends itself to the second stage, exploration. The exploration stage runs from 15 to 25 years old. During this stage, the earlier cultural exposures begin to crystallize. The people begin to narrow their ideas about what they would like to do and what might be vocationally available to them. These crystallizations lead the person to make specific educational and vocational choices in the direction of his or her interests. To go back to the example of the child who became interested in becoming a counselor, this person has chosen what is called a protean career because she feels called to the counseling. When you're called, it's called protean career. During the exploration stage, while in high school, the young woman would choose electives in classes that would lead to a college major in psychology. When entering university, the student would declare a major in psychology, which of course would prepare her for a job as a counselor. This process heads straight into the third stage, establishment, which spans ages 25 through 45. This is pretty much what it sounds like. The focus of this stage in establishment is one's career. So you're establishing your career. It also includes career advancement. In our example of the person called to counseling, this stage would include submitting to supervision through a practicum, fieldwork, and an internship period. Then the person would need to pass certain exams to become a licensed counselor. After this, the licensed counselor would choose where she might work. Then she would get stabilized in her position, work to consolidate by getting used to doing progress notes and all the other paperwork involved in being a counselor, and she would cultivate professional relationships with her colleagues and those in the community. It may seem like a duh statement, but the establishment stage can happen more than once if a person changes careers during any stage. Whitbourne and Whitbourne call this recycling. The fourth stage of vocational development is maintenance. This goes between the ages of 45 and 65 approximately. During this stage, persons decide whether or not to stay in their profession. If they decide to find a new career, they will return to the establishment stage just as we learned. If they decide to stay in their career, then they can do a kind of cruise control where they just do what is required and not putting much effort into their career. Or they might take trainings to keep current about what is happening in their profession. For example, our counselor in maintenance stage would probably take trainings above what is required in her state to maintain licensure. The counselor might help in the fight to get important legislation passed. She might advocate for clients above and beyond within community. The counselor might provide special groups such as dialectic behavioral therapy for folks, or she might serve in community therapeutic organizations to affect change. Whether the person decides to do a cruise control idea or is quite active within her profession, Whitbourne and Whitbourne say that they plateau because they decided to stay in their profession. Finally, the fifth stage is disengagement. This goes from 65 to death. It used to be called decline. Engagement seems like a gentler term, and I'm glad they changed it. At this time of vocational development, a person anticipates leaving the workplace. She makes the decision to retire, leaves the workplace, makes the adjustment to retired living, and lives in a new life away from work. This time of life can take many years, as people might remain in the anticipatory period for a while, or they might vacillate between the anticipatory period and the decision to retire. When we think about vocational and retirement theories, Lytle, Foley, and Cotter did a critical review of 9 theories and found that Super's theory of vocational development addressed 4 out of 5 areas. The 4 areas were retirement career stage, retirement choices, considers culture, and allows for flexibility for expansion. Super's theory was not found to include the area of work satisfaction at the age of retirement. Lytle and her colleagues found that Super's model included diverse and culturally sensitive minority status issues such as gender role norms, socioeconomic status, historical change, social structure, and family roles. All of these are areas very important when helping folks with retirement issues and strategies. Now we will briefly move to Donald Super's life space part of the theory. And this has to do with life roles. So we have the child, the student, the leisureite, the citizen, worker, homemaker, parent. And all of these happen in social contexts: home, community, school, workplace. So these are very important, and they go with each other. So you can't do one without the other. They go back and forth. So as a child, you have your home, your community, your school, your workplace. As a student, the same thing. As a worker, the same thing. And as a parent, the same thing. So when you're getting to be of the retirement age, 2 different studies found that older workers who can become mentors are way more satisfied. So this is a pretty cool thought, like when you're getting ready to retire and go, go away from the workplace, being a mentor is helpful. I know a person who works at the county, and they have mentorships so that people mentor other employees and there's more satisfaction. So it works out pretty good. And some of the clients that come to me are the same. They are allowed to be mentors at their work, which gives them more satisfaction. So the lifespan and the life space intersect with each other, and then they create influence in our career path. So if the girl who's going to be a counselor, well, it's going to be very different for her when she's first without a family or of her own and all of that. It's going to be different to her, and then it's going to get more and more. It's going to add dimensions to it when she becomes a parent, and all of these things add together to make us, in our salient roles, to make us, who we are and how we deal with our careers and our development that way. We won't go into too much detail here, but you can see how the social context and the life roles intersect and mesh all together to make us who we are in our developmental, our vocational developmental stages. And now we'll move to the conclusion and end this presentation. To recap, we covered Donald Super's 5 lifespan stages. They are the growth stage from birth to 15 years, the exploration stage from 15 to 25 years, the establishment stage from 25 to 45 years, the maintenance stage from 45 to 65 years, and the disengagement stage from 65 and beyond. We took a little more time to think about folks at retirement age and the importance of remembering that this stage of vocational development is very important because it is a big part of the lifespan and life space stages. Finally, we touched on the life space part of Super's theory by realizing how the 9 life roles, that of child, the one of student, the leisureite, citizen, the worker, and the homemaker/parent, do not exist in a vacuum. They are totally intertwined with the 4 social contexts of home, community, school, and workplace at every turn. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. It was a great fun to create it and a lot of great stuff to learn. Thank you. Bye-bye.